thank you all for being here. My name is Aaron Tiedemann. I'm the program manager for the Shift program. I also have my colleagues Dylan and Stephanie here. Uh, we are going to take you through a short presentation about this opportunity in this RFQ, explain the Shift program, the timeline and process for this RFQ, and then we'll have plenty of time for questions. The main point of this is to get to your questions, and we will put all of those in FAQ that we will send out to anyone who shares their email in the chat, as well as post on our site for everyone to take a look at. So the majority of time will be available for questions. Hopefully you can all see the slides I'm sharing. Dylan, is that showing up well? Great. This is our info session for the Scalable Housing Infill Funding Toolkit or SHIFT Pilot Program RFQ. So thank you all for being here. The SHIFT program, I'm going to start by introducing it a little bit for those of you who may not have seen the previous information we've released about it, as well as give a little bit more color to what's in the RFQ. This is our attempt to do housing a little differently than we have done in the past as the county. We have distributed funds as part of our Measure A1 bond or other, funding opportunities, but those largely go to large-scale, traditional affordable projects built by nonprofit affordable developers, which are great. But we wanted to open up this project and this program to a different sort of development with different goals, and that appeals to a different audience, a different universe of people who can build those projects. So we've really built it around a couple key goals to try and improve upon the formula that we have for building affordable housing. One of those is having a lower per unit development cost. We want to bring that down using whatever tools we have available. Part of that is we want to simplify the financing and streamline the construction of these projects, so we don't want them, waiting around to get funds for multiple application processes. We want to make that simple and upfront. We also want Shift projects to be able to happen on different sites than we have been able to do projects on previously. We've been very constrained by the size of the types of projects that we invest in, that it has to be pretty large sites that often have their own challenges. We want this to work with infill, smaller sites. And we want to create more opportunities for more firms to partner with us and become a part of that affordable housing ecosystem. So I'm really glad to see all of you here, and I'm really happy with the attendance we've had at this info session and people's interest, because that is a key part of what we want to have happen. Now that SHIFT program is really built around three main components, and two of those are the funding, which I'm going to discuss in more detail, but the other is a public toolkit. Part of SHIFT is really giving you as builders, as developers, a system or set of tools that you can use to make projects easier to build and meet those core guidelines that we set out for our goals for this program. So that's a lot of different things that we are working on with our program design consultants, like technical assistance around how to use certain state laws, feasibility tools so you can scope out and have reliable cost estimates, procurement templates, and also, pre-approved designs. We're working on the first set of those with our program design consultant, but we also want to build that library through the projects that many of you might build, and have, designs that new people, as well as people who, aren't getting money from us, but are just want to build this style of project and haven't been able to, can use to plot things out, to have cost estimates, and to put things in the ground easier. So that's the public toolkit part of things, that anyone here, even if you don't apply to the RFQ, that will be public and you'll have access to it, and it will hopefully help you build these sort of middle-sized projects. The other two main pieces are these funding parts of these pilot programs for what we're trying to build. And I'm going to discuss each of these in more depth as part of the presentation, but the first is the missing middle development pilot, which we have almost $10 million for, and that's to try and build small multifamily affordable housing some of it on tax defaulted properties, some of it on properties that you may be looking at, that you may have found, that we will, source through the open market, a whole bunch of different ways that we can get those projects. The other is the age in place ADU pilot for seniors, which is providing essentially an accessible ADU for a moderate income senior, doing a lot split and selling their main residence so that they have a place to age in place, and we open up housing to right size for new people. Again, I'm going to cover both those in more detail, but I wanted to introduce the overall idea of what goes into the Shift program and what its key components are. Um, I think it's also important to note that we kind of assume for most Shift projects that you will use some variety of state laws that have recently passed to make densification easier on infill sites. No project is required to use all or even any particular ones of these, but we want to see these new laws be utilized to make projects more easily constructible, streamlined in their planning and approvals process, fit more units, or do so more densely than has been possible before on maybe lots that, are not zoned for huge multifamily projects. This is just a sort of representative example of some of the ones that we think are probably going to be most useful and that our toolkit will have some resources for how to use. But we wanted to sort of preview that as a goal of we want to see these start to be used to their fullest potential to make projects easier to pencil and achieve the goals that we have for them. Uh, Now, also, I wanted to say on the process here, we're using a two-step procurement process. The first is the developer pool RFQ that we released at the end of last month and that we're talking about today. That's basically a chance for firms like the ones that you all represent to get pre-qualified to build a Shift project. That is us saying, these are all firms who could do this, that we've evaluated, that have shown us that they have the portfolio necessary and that could do this work in the future. And we want to show that as a list of these are people who can do that, and also make that available so that even if it's not us, but there's someone who has a property that they have had vacant or underutilized for a long time and they would like to see developed, but they haven't quite been able to figure out how to do it, they can look at our list and say, well, okay, here's a lot of partners that I could use who could do this with me. The second part will be the NOFA and site RFP, the Notice of Funding Availability, and our request for proposals for some specific sites. Basically, firms that qualify under this RFQ will be able to bid on those sites. Those sites might be tax defaulted properties or other publicly owned sites that we will put up through that site specific RFP, basically saying here are some opportunities to build a Shift style project on a site that we've identified, as well as the NOFA that will distribute about 7.5 million and allow you to say, maybe you have a project in mind, you've identified a site, you haven't been able to make the financing work quite, or you'd like to do it with us. That's how you bid on that once you're a qualified developer. And again, I'll go more through the timeline of that later after I go through each of the scopes in this RFQ, but that is the two-step procurement process that we're using. Now, like I said, the first of the pilots and the bigger one in terms of funding available later on is the missing middle development pilot. That's where we're really trying to do affordable, low-cost, middle-sized development. This sort of small multifamily typology that used to be a really big part of our housing ecosystem, but doesn't get built all that often anymore because a lot of the time it isn't penciling and there aren't the tools and financial products meant to build it. With this, we're targeting all of the units we build through this program are meant to be affordable to low-income households, so 60 to 80% AMI, and they're all intended to be rental for now. We are structuring this around our subsidy of $150,000 per unit. That is a fixed subsidy that we want to commit upfront as part of this, so that you can go forward and build this project knowing how much subsidy you have from us without having to go through a really lengthy waiting application process while trying to also develop a project at the same time. And that is intended to be the only source of public subsidy. Project sizes are generally anticipated to be between 4 and 16 units, and the total development cost per unit is targeted at $600,000 a door or below, which is based off market trends and what we think is possible with the amount of money we're putting up and using the streamlining. And we are aiming for a pretty quick turnaround on these. Again, we want these projects to go in the ground quickly, and we hope that our upfront funding can do that. So, 12 to 24 months to occupancy with a 30-year deed restriction. So basically just, a deed restriction to make sure that those units stay affordable. And to go a little bit more into how these sorts of projects are funded and how they work. Basically, we are providing or helping to provide two main sources of funding. One is that county subsidy loan, like I said, that's structured as very low interest loan, and anticipates no other source of public subsidy. We do not want these projects, getting our money and then waiting around to get tax credits or something else for a long time. We want them to take our money and go. The other main source of funding is a CDFI loan from one of our partners that we've identified who have funds and want to get involved in these projects, and will provide around 60% of the total development cost. Now, between that and our subsidy, that's the vast majority of the funding here. The other funding we anticipate to be some developer equity, but the goal is to really keep this, like I said, a simplified funding stream. And I'll talk a little bit more, I think, later about those CDFI partners, but they are really a big part of this in terms of having a loan that can keep this get this project moving. We also anticipate that most of these sorts of projects will be turnkey. We don't expect all of the people who apply under this RFQ to be operators of affordable housing, as we know that that is a specialized sort of work. So a lot of these we think will happen where it's a turnkey development that a nonprofit owner that we will help connect to will eventually take over the project, get a welfare tax exemption, and run it in the long term after it's been built. So the other main scope of work that's in this RFQ is our senior ADU pilot. And that is, like I said, providing a funding for lot split administration. So using the state law to split the main residence and an ADU residence into separate lots and build an accessible ADU for the homeowner. This is targeting a slightly different population where we are looking for sort of low to moderate income homeowners who may be cash poor but housing rich, but also may want to right size their housing and have something they can really age in place in. Again, that subsidy is about 150,000, and the project size is smaller. This is an ADU rather than a multifamily residence. So we're aiming for a lower total development cost and a quicker timeline, just as these are smaller projects. And importantly, this one, the ADU doesn't really have an affordability term on it. How these deals are meant to work is that the lot split will happen and the senior will move into their new accessible two-bedroom ADU while their previous main residence is put on the open market so that a maybe larger household who needs that space can buy into it and repay some of the loan that we've had on there. And once again, this has two main sources of funding. One is our part of the funds, our subsidy, that funds the administration of that lot split and some of that building cost. And the other is our, once again, a CDFI partner who gets in on a construction loan to build that two-bedroom accessible ADU. That loan is we plan to be repaid on sale of the primary residence. So once that senior has moved into their new home, they sell their main house, we can recapitalize that way. The goal is to have them retain the vast majority of their equity, but also, pay for building that new ADU. And like I said, we would be funding the administration of the lot split, so we will be doing that through our program partner and administrator for this aspect of things, as well as funding firms who qualify under this to actually build the ADU. So again, the main part of this that's identified in the RFQ is the scope of work is the construction of the ADU within the remit that we've outlined. Whereas the lot split administration, we will usually handle with our administrator. Now, on the timeline, I want to go through a little of how the this opportunity is going to work with the RFQ and our funding opportunities, as there's a couple different steps. Basically, we launched the RFQ at the end of June, and we are going to keep it open. There's no end date to this current RFQ. It is going to remain open. We want it to be a revolving, pool, so new people can always come in. That means that whenever you feel that you have a application that you're happy with and a portfolio that you want to submit, you can. We anticipate the first review of applications is to show who's qualified and who's not to happen in August, with another one in November before we start selecting projects. So that missing middle NOFA we anticipate to launch in October. Uh, that will, have the funding available and the site specific RFPs, and then we'll have the senior AD launch program in November. Like I said, before projects are selected for that missing middle NOFA in December, we are aiming to have two different reviews of this RFQ. So we're aiming to have plenty of chances for people to get qualified so that they can then apply under the funding opportunity. At the end of the year and a little into next year, we'll have the contract finalization period where we're working with our initial pilot group of funded developers. And then we have our tentative goal is to have a February board contract approval where we take our selected projects to the board for their final approval so that they can get underway and start building at the start of next year. Now, just a little more about the evaluation process of this RFQ, because it is not necessarily like some of the ones that we've done before. We will have a county selection committee to review starting in August. That will be, staff from our office and our partners who will look at applications for, completeness, their minimum qualifications, and really focusing on their references and portfolio quality. This RFQ, we're not, scoring or evaluating each application to put them, in an ordered list of who gets funding first. We're really trying to just qualify people and show that they can do this work. So as part of that, we have a developer tier organization that is in the RFQ, and there's one of these for each of the scopes. And that just sorts really largely based on experience and the objective standards included in the RFQ. And that's, again, really just to show how much experience people have, who might be able to do, some of these bigger projects easier, who might need to partner with someone else, or, give opportunities to emerging or smaller developers without as much experience to be able to do this work. After we do that, again, the NOFA and RFPs that are launched this fall will have the funding opportunities for qualified applicants who qualify under this RFQ. Where we will be evaluating the proposals for projects that come into us that request funding, and selecting them. And then there's just one more step, which is, like I mentioned, a big part of this is the CDFI funding. that projects will be able to get in addition to our funds. So once projects are selected by us, they may have to undergo a little bit more underwriting from our CDFIs just to make sure that they feel comfortable giving a loan because they have people with money that they have to be accountable to, and they have to show that they are using it well. So folks will just have to go through a little bit more process there, but we want to make that as painless and easy as possible. So it shouldn't be too onerous. And we think most of it will be answered by things that are part of that funding application under that RFP. That's a lot of information. So, like I said, we're going to go to questions and have plenty of time for people to ask. But I'll just say it as the last thing, we really appreciate everyone's interest here. Like we've mentioned, there are two scopes here, and we encourage everyone to apply for one or both of those. Make sure that your portfolio responds to the scope of work for the missing middle or the ADU or both. We want to really be able to see people's experience doing those sorts of projects so that we can really say with confidence that you can do these sorts of projects and qualify you into this pool. With that,